All right. First rule of this channel, we not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be the first target list video. This is going to be heavily strategy based. So if you're not in that type of thing and you want to see like, crazy graphics and stuff like that, sorry. Anyway, this is how I whittle down the guys that I go after in my draft to about like 20 dudes. And like that's just how I'm gonna roll. It makes my drafting easy. It makes me be able to attack most of the guys with the upside. And I actually want to miss on a lot of those guys because then that gives me the flexibility with week one to start picking up those waiver wire guys that we missed on because, you know, uh, maybe we could have known about Kyron Williams last year, but we didn't. And we definitely could have known about Puka and we didn't. A lot of us didn't. So, like, that's just how I would look at these guys to visualize this, and this will make it really easy. This is similar to what my list will look like. My lazy co-manager who will put out no effort until about a week before the draft and then wants me to explain everything to him. This is what I will basically give him. The red are guys that I will just take off because of age or injury or some other reasons behind that. Blue are guys that I think are overvalued. Green would be targets. Yellow are guys that right now they're just placeholders. I don't think there's enough information to really make certain decisions about them. And then pink are guys that I just don't know how they win me leagues, and therefore I will just take them off my board. So by draft day, this thing will mostly be like yellow and green and white. White would be guys I think are just generally valued correctly, and if they fall to me at that ADP, then I will pull the trigger on them. Again, like guys like Rome and Xavier Worthy, more than likely by draft day, I will just take them off the board because there will be targets around them that I just don't know how I would end up getting them in any leagues. And the idea is I on a year to year basis, I can get my draft picks outside of round 5 to have about like a 50, 60, 70% hit rate. That means that like if I'm getting a guy outside of round 5 as a wide receiver 2 or a running back 2 or a tight end 1 or a quarterback 1, that's a hit relative to the draft position that they're going at. So if I can get up that high with the targets, then I'm feeling pretty good. Then I just have to hit on most of, if not all of my top 50 picks, and I'm going to win a league. And it's pretty much that simple. I can get it down to the point where my high school league last year, I lost in the finals. That's just going to be the luck component of fantasy football. That's like very difficult to control. In my main money league, they did talk about getting going off of the auction league, and I said I'd quit, like straight up, because in that auction league, the ability to pinpoint players allows the person that's willing to put more investment into fantasy football to win, and it lowers the luck component of, oh, this guy just happened to fall to me here, I guess I'll take him. In auction league, it's like, no, I don't want that guy. I'm not going to bid on him. I do want that guy. I'm going to overbid on that guy to a certain point, and that's when we'll talk about like Lad and Brian Johnson. So I will hopefully go position by position, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, and break down kind of what looks like the meta is going to be this year and how I'm going to attack the position. There are certain guys that I will just take off my board because I'm going to target other guys later, and it's just not worth spending the capital on them. So the interesting guy right now would be like Mark Andrews, who he's my tight end too. He's going tight end 3 in most leagues. He's going like 51 overall on ESPN. The whole reason why I'm showing you this ESPN list is because my co-manager is lazy and I'm going to end up using it. And the other reason is it looks prettier than like looking at the Fantasy Pros. But Mark Andrews is going 48, which is just inside of those like top 5, 50 picks, something along those lines. So Mark Andrews going 48 overall, it wouldn't be a guy that I was not expecting to be able to go get. And this is just me attacking the meta because of the inappropriate value of Travis Kelce and Sam Laporta. With Kelce and Laporta going where they're at, you would expect the tight end 3 to be relatively in the same range. So if Kelce and Laporta are 27 and 29 with the ECR on Fantasy Pros, I would expect like Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews to be probably about 10 picks lower than that. So like 37 overall, like 38. I would expect to see Mark Andrews. He's not there. He has the same ceiling as Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce, theoretically, because he's done it before. And that's the easy part. And I can bring up Mark Andrews so we can discuss this. He has the ability to finish as the number 1 in his offense and to have a legendary season because he did it in 2021. Now, there may be some issues with Mark Andrews when it comes to age or injury, certain other things that are going on with the offense. That's fair, But at the price that he's going at, for me to find out and be competitive with the other guys in my league that went up and they spent a premium draft pick on Travis Kelce or Sam Laporta. The other thing with Travis Kelce and Sam Laporta, in my opinion, is that they are both flawed in a way that Mark Andrews is not. And that's why I would attack a Mark Andrews in the draft. Now, if I miss on a Mark Andrews, I'm fine. Like if someone goes up and they get him early, if I just get the wrong position in a snake draft and he's not available for me to pick up, I still have my Trey McBrides, I still have my Dalton Kincaids, and I still have Kyle Pitts, and I also really like Jake Ferguson. And again, I can just keep kicking the can. I can play that tight end chicken at that point in my league. There's a good possibility I'm going to go 2 tight ends because of how inappropriately valued these guys are this year, which means I'm probably going to walk out of my draft, especially if I'm going to go 2 quarterbacks too, which looks also like I'm going to do. I'm going to be walking out of my draft with 1 less running back or wide receiver than I would usually like to. But that's just how it's going to go based off the meta and me trying to win my league. So the other thing to be looking at in this is some of these guys, if they're going outside a particular range, I have to be smart enough to go like, well, I'm not going to get, I'm not going to get a league winner so much as I'm going to get a guy that's like a good replacement level guy, or he's going to give the ability for me to pivot. If I get a wide receiver 2 outside of those top 50 picks and I can just, slot him in because a guy has gotten injured or has busted, then that's also a valuable pick. I want to miss on some of these guys late, like a Brian Thomas Jr. I may think that he has top 10 wide receiver upside. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but we'll break that down later in the week. But the thing is with him, if he busts week 1, and I mean like severely busts, and I go like, hey, who's this year's Blake Corum? I can go pick that guy up. Brian Thomas going at the range that he's going is going to allow me to go do that. So I don't really care if I miss on that pick. The same thing if I miss on Chase Brown and Zach Moss, and it looks like I may be trying to attack both these guys in this backfield. Then if the guy that I miss on, I can throw away and I can pick someone else up, and I'm happy to do that relative to what I'm paying on these guys to go find out like earlier in the draft that I could have, and I'm just going to go see if I can find someone to talk about real quick. Kenneth Walker. If I draft Kenneth Walker around 32 overall, and I think on Fantasy Pros he's going 46 overall, if I draft the Kenneth Walker and he ends up being in some like really ugly 50-50 time split share with Zach Charbonnet, like I can't do anything. I can't throw Kenneth Walker away. Like I'm stuck with this really ugly low end RB2 until I can figure out a way to have someone take him off my roster. Because if I dump him, the better thing in that case, if I miss on a Kenneth Walker at 46 overall, is that he gets injured, because then I can get him, I can get the roster spot back in a way that the only other way I can get rid of Kenneth Walker is figure out a way to do a really bad trade, and that's something we'll talk about like during the season. But in this case, like, why would I draft that guy in the first place when I know he has limited ability to win me a league? And the downside is he's in this really ugly timeshare. So that's why, like, you could see that I've just taken him off my board. Like, he could be someone else's problem. Like, if I'm wrong on that, how could I have seen that I was wrong ahead of time? Well, I can see how I could be right now. So I won't be drafting him. And that would be kind of the idea behind it. So to get a better understanding of what my draft board would look like with all this white, the white would be guys that either I'm not planning to take, or I'm going to take at value. And the green would be guys that like I really want to fall to me at my draft position. Or the other thing is the guys that I would be jumping up to go get. And to look over here with your Mark Andrews shares, there's this dead zone for me between like pick 36 and pick 51 that if Mark Andrews is available, I would go up and get him. And about the only other guy in this area that I would even think about would be Lamar Jackson. And the reason why I may not end up going and getting Lamar Jackson is because of your Anthony Richardson, your Kyler Murray's, and your Jayden Daniels going later in the draft. That like there's a certain amount of redundancy when it comes to that. Like I could play it safe and just go get Mark Andrews, or I could try and gamble a little bit and take Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews in that range. Now, in my auction league, and primarily this is what I prepare for, is that Lamar Jackson pickup is going to be more based off of price than it is anything else. If they give me Lamar Jackson under what he's listed at, and this is like $17, which is under what I would expect him to go at in the league. I think he's going to go closer to like $30 in my league. If they give him to me for 17, then I would take Lamar Jackson. I wouldn't overthink it. Just in the same way, like, I don't think Mark Andrews is going to go for $12. I think he was going to go closer to just under 30 himself. So like, I don't think I'm going to get these guys in that auction league. But in general, this would be the idea behind it as I go down the line. So certain guys, and we talk about like Jonathan Brooks is going to be one of the major ones. I have no idea. Even though I would normally take a Jonathan Brooks off my board because of the knee injury, he's going 104 ECR on Fantasy Pros with the expectation that he's going to be this year's Breece Hall with the second half explosion as he ramps up off the knee injury. So how much am I really concerned with Chuba Hubbard? Well, not really, because eventually in the second half of the season, if Chuba Hubbard stays on the roster, I would imagine at that point, like, you're going to look at like 60-40, 70-30 split. And I only really care about those two things, which is going to be the red zone opportunities and the receiving opportunities. Jonathan Brooks is probably going to be more of the design receiving back, so I'm going to get half of that. And then the other thing I'm going to be looking at with Jonathan Brooks is going to be how much red zone opportunity I'm going to get. That's going to be more of a question on like how good the Panthers are as a whole this year. Generally, I do tend to want to stay away from bad offenses, but at 104 overall, like, yeah, I'll take that gamble that I can have a second half top 10 running back any day of the week. So this is ridiculously undervalued. And then part of the reason why I have the ESPN up is at 66 overall, running back 19. Running back 19 is closer to where he should be valued at. 66 overall, I think it's undervalued. So I'd still be attacking him at this range of the draft. I probably would go up slightly to go get him. And at this point, because of how this is broken down, if I want my Jonathan Brooks in an ESPN league, and this is one of the main things with strategy, is know your league, know your league psychology, know your individual league mates, know what rankings your league tends to draft off of. My high school league, they're going to be Yahoo, and they follow that pretty religiously. So my main money league, they don't follow rankings. They come in with their own ideas, and that's a little bit harder. I have to know the guys in the league. There's a guy that's going to go draft a quarterback in the second round. There's going to and a tight end in the third round. He's going to do it every year, and he makes the semis like half the time, just off that meta. So I know that the tight end one is probably going to be Laporta, and the quarterback one, which we can kind of guess on. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be Josh Allen in his mind. So he's gonna go really hard, and he's gonna get those two guys, and it's gonna cost him about like 60, 70, $80 in that league to go get those two guys, and he's gonna be happy, and he's gonna have a very competitive roster based off that. He tends to miss on some of the other guys later on, but that's just how that league rolls. And to understand that ahead of time with Jonathan Brooks, like, yeah, I could definitely see Jonathan Brooks getting up into the 50s. Jonathan Brooks probably should have something along the lines of a 30s or 40s grade when it comes to where he should be going in the draft, with the expectation that he's going to ramp up like Breece. It just becomes an issue of how much better the Panthers are going to be this year, and that's going to tell me like how I should value Jonathan Brooks. So at 66 overall, yeah, I would go up 10 spots to get Jonathan Brooks. I can plan that ahead of time because that's going to put him in this range, which means like if I want Mark Andrews, I'm going to have to go up 10 picks to go get Mark Andrews, which means I'm probably not going to get Lamar Jackson. If I don't want to do that in that league, then if I'm not going to get Mark Andrews, then some of the other tight ends start becoming guys that I have to prioritize early because I think they're inappropriately valued. And we'll break down some of that stuff later on in the week. I just want to get the idea behind this. I do like Zamir White at the range that he's going at, 77 overall on ESPN. On Fantasy Pros, he's going, let me pull this up. He's going 69, which I think is relatively okay. The big problem with Zamir White is you're buying a piece of a bad offense, more than likely, or not a good offense. I tend to not like that. But where he's going at running back 22, if he gives me running back 18, I still won that pick as a replacement level running back. So it's fine. I don't necessarily think he's got like top 10 running back, maybe top 12, but I don't know if he's got like that elite, range of outcomes that I would have liked. But those are guys that I'd be looking at. Calvin Ridley's a guy I like on ECR, on Fantasy Pros, on ESPN, where I think he's going like closer to value. And this is why to like look at your league and kind of see what are the likely rankings everybody's going to go off of. Calvin Ridley going 48 overall, wide receiver 25. That's where he should be going. So in a non ESPN league, there may be value to Calvin Ridley. I'm going to have interest on a guy that has like top 20, if not like top 10 upside, and I can go get him. And if I'm wrong on him at 68 overall or in that range, like, yeah, see you later. I'm going to go find my Kyren Williams, my Puka this year overall in the draft. Other guys that I have written down, we can talk about real quick. I do like my Mark Andrews, Trey McBride. Trey McBride, even with Marvin Harrison coming in, if he's about 7 targets a game, that's going to put him in the 120 target range, which is going to be like that like sub elite range, which means at 60 overall, tight end 5, I'm going to still get return. He's going 54 on Fantasy Pros, which I think is more in line with him. Terry McLaurin, he's going again 83 on ESPN, which I think is very inappropriately valued. He's closer to where he should be going at 63 with an ECR. Probably should be going up about like 10 picks higher than that. So this is a guy that I can play chicken with and go, I hope he's there at 63. My auction league, I can probably get him under value because of where he's going to be going in the draft. And then in your snake draft leagues, like, yeah, I probably would have to go up and prioritize them. If I'm stacking, and stacking does look like it's going to be a bigger meta, and I wanted that Jaden Daniels share, I can make sure that I get Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels in a way that I can't stack some of the other quarterbacks. So that would be something I would be looking at also. Zamir White, Chris Godwin, 76 on Fantasy Pros. I do like this. Remember, last year we were wrong. Some offenses that we think are going to be bad are not going to be bad. And that's what happened with Tampa Bay. Chris Godwin's going in this range. ESPN, and this is why it gets a little difficult. Chris Godwin's going 54 overall, which I still think is closer to where he should be going. So if I'm saving 20 picks, then Chris Godwin would be on my board. And these will be guys that likely are not going to be on my target list. They will be the consolation prizes if my league mates are actually like functioning human beings. So let's see, moving on to some of the other guys. I do like Zach Moss. I already talked about like Zach Moss and Chase Brown. In this case, with these two guys, I'm probably going to be buying the backfield, and I'm going to get one of two things. I'm going to get mid-level RB2s. So you can go down here and you can look at Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. You're going to be probably getting those two guys, but you're going to be getting them much later in the draft attached to a better offense. So there's Najee at 70, and Jaylen Warren should be around this age, 84 overall. So the ECR on these guys is better, but on an ESPN league, it's a little bit worse. So I would probably want Zach Moss at 89. And where's the other one? Chase Brown is 122. So these are to be the guys that I would be wanting. Chase Brown's going to have the higher upside to be the receiving back. So if you get a receiving back that's going to get the goal line work, you're going to have an RB1 in a way that Zach Moss is likely going to be the check down monster goal line guy. So like in one way or another, if you get this backfield, you're either going to get an RB2 going outside of RB2 range, or you're going to get a top 10 running back. That's why, like right now, I think I'm going to be attacking the entirety of this backfield at the price because they are going to be attached to this Cincinnati offense. And that would be an offense I do want to target overall going forward. I do like Trevor Lawrence going at 106. Courtland Sutton's going at 100. Remember, anybody that's attached to the number one attached to a good offense is going to have a chance to, or is going to be fantasy relevant. He's going wide receiver 44. If I get wide receiver 36, it's a win. If I get wide receiver 24, it's a win. If magically Bo Penix is good, or not Bo Penix, Bo Nix is good, Courtland Sutton, like theoretically, like what, top 15, top 10 upside, and it's going at pick 10 or pick 100. If I can tell that story ahead of time, then when it happens, it's like, well, yeah, I knew it was going to happen. So at the picks that these guys are going at, it becomes a lot harder. On ESPN, he's going at 86 overall, not quite as good. Probably closer to his value. He probably should be like around wide receiver 36, I'm going to guess. I do want to talk about this Hollywood Brown pick. Gotta go look it up real quick. He's going 83. This would be a guy right now that I'm waiting on certain information that hopefully we'll find out by the time we draft. And he might end up being a target. He might not end up being a target. You see Rashee Rice is right there at 82. It's really going to come down to like what we think is going to go on with his offense. Right now, I would be leaning towards targeting him to get like a wide receiver 2 in this offense. If we find out certain other news, yeah, I wouldn't be targeting him because I'm not interested in guys that can't win me leagues. At 83 overall, if he's a wide receiver 2, yeah, he can win me a league. At 83 overall as a wide receiver 3, he can't win me a league. I'm not interested. And I generally would stay away from Rashee Rice because I'll let him be someone else's problem. So that's something else to be thinking about. The two guys, if you've been following this league and they're in the same area, Brian Thomas Jr. to be the Z. These are guys, like Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd McConkey, I'm expecting to be in that like 120 to 150 target range. Brian Thomas is probably going to be a second half of the year guy, so I probably would not go up and attack him as aggressively as Ladd McConkey. And I can't really see a way that Ladd McConkey doesn't at least return as a wide receiver 3, going at like wide receiver 48. On Fantasy Pros, the ECR, they're right in the same range. He is Ladd McConkey's 112, which is even better. And then Brian Thomas Jr. is going at where does he go? 126. So like I'm hoping that these rankings stay relatively consistent. This is half point PPR EC for the expert consensus rating. And at this point, like what's the worst that's going to happen? Like if I'm getting Brian Thomas as my 13th or 12th round pick, it's the first guy that I throw away in week 1 because he doesn't hit a particular amount of targets in week 1 with that expectation. Now, the other guy to talk about that I'm a little less interested in your Christian Kirk, where I do think he's going relatively where he should be going as like wide receiver 37 overall, is not going to have the ability to win me a league. Like I'm looking at a wide receiver 2 cap in a way that Brian Thomas Jr. being that like 10 target a game hog, even if it's going to be in the second half of the season, like that's why I would be more interested in a guy that theoretically can win me a league as opposed to Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk may be able to return as that flex guy, like because I hit on my wide receiver 2. Brian Thomas is going to be the guy that like I think has the league winning upside in a way that like Christian Kirk doesn't. I do like Christian Kirk, if you're wondering. That's why I haven't taken him off my board where he's going. Like if he falls to me at 84 overall and I can't get my targets, like Terry McLaurin's gone, like I would be taking Christian Kirk overall. But Ladd McConkey is like, if you haven't been following the channel, he's going to be like one of the bigger guys that I'd be targeting overall. And then I do like my Blake Corum shares down here at the bottom. If I could know ahead of time, like last year, and I talked about this last year with David Montgomery. David Montgomery was a guy I thought was going undervalued. I think he's undervalued again this year. But not to the extent that he was undervalued last year. If I can get David Montgomery at 74 overall on ESPN, I probably would be much more interested in that. I think he's going like a much higher on the ECR. Yeah, 59 overall, a little less interested because that's closer to what his actual value should be. So I would be attacking Blake Corum. Again, knowing if I could get last year's David Montgomery at like 138 on Fantasy Pros, he's going 130 overall. Other guys like Ty Chandler, throwing that dart like, hey, can I get this year's Ty Montgomery at a range that goes, or not Ty Montgomery, David Montgomery at a range that goes outside of David Montgomery. Ty Montgomery would make that or would hit that expectation. He's going at pick 150. So like if I'm wrong on Ty Chandler, like he could be someone else's problem. He'll go to the waiver wire. I need that flexibility. If I'm right on Ty Chandler, I get a 50-50 time split when it comes to Minnesota. So I would generally like that overall. Zach Charbonnet is another one at 124. If I'm looking for wide or running back 2s right now, the guys that I would be tracking to be potential league winners, running back 1s, I don't have the ability to guess on. Kendre Miller, Marshawn Lloyd, Chuba Hubbard, Deonta Foreman, Rico Dowdle, Ray Davis. Like some of these guys, like some of these are going to be injury related. When it comes to Trey Benson, some of these guys are going to be injury related. Will Shipley's, some of the other ones, Braylon Allen, Eric Gray, some of those guys that's where they're going to end up being. Some of the other ones like your Kamini Vidal, Eric Gray, Tyrone Tracy, that's camp stuff that we got to wait on to before I can guess on that stuff if they're even worth throwing a lottery ticket out to start the season off with. And then let's see, finishing off Dontavian Wicks, I have all the way over here. It was crazy on Fantasy Pro, or excuse me, on Yahoo. Dontavian Wicks was going like 134 yesterday. So the reason why I don't dislike Christian Watson, I don't dislike Jayden Reed, I just don't want to spend the price to get a wide receiver 3 when I can maybe get a wide receiver 1 or even a wide receiver 2 with Dontavian Wicks. So he's 252 on ESPN, which makes him really interesting on Fantasy Pros. He's going way down here too. I gotta go hunt him down. I don't even think I looked him up ahead of time, unfortunately. Dontavian 164. I like that a little bit better than having to make sure that I spend a pick on him. So he would be the guy like those deep dart throws. Hey, can we tell the story that he ends up being like the 80% snaps guy for this this projected good Green Bay offense? Yeah. Jolyn Polk, Devon Baker on Fantasy Pros, the ECR 189, 198. Remember, if I can get a wide receiver 2, but it's going outside of this range, like I really like that. The only guy that's listed right now on ESPN is going to be Jolyn Polk. And some of this, like I said, is going to allow me to put together my draft strategy because I know that there are guys that are likely going to go undrafted in a lot of leagues that I can attack week 1 versus the guys that I want to make sure that I have a higher opinion on. Brian Thomas, I can tell the story about how he's going to get 10 targets week 1 in a way that I can't tell that story with Jolyn Polk or Dontavian Wicks. And I think that's about it for today. So I am planning to come back and kind of talk about the positions, tight ends, quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, like the targets that we're going to be looking at, not just the guys that we can guess right now because of free agency and the rookie drafts, but the guys that we want to be paying attention to in camp, and if they're going to be guys that I would be prioritizing once we find out some of the information that's going on. But anyway, that would be the general idea to start this off with, and we'll see how this video goes.